Welcome to Freelance Sucks. Here we discuss the dark side of freelancing about which nobody usually talks out loud. In this show, we speak with experienced freelancers, and I'm sure listening to their stories helps you prepare for freelancers' challenges. My name is Yuri, I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Nadia Harris, a huge remote work advocate. She's even a founder of remoteworkadvocate.com, who strongly believes that the 9 to 5 model is the industrial era and helps companies to really be remote first and hybrid and definitely hire best freelancers worldwide. So welcome, Nadia.
Hello, great pleasure to be here as always. Not that I've been here before, but chatting with you is always a great pleasure. That's what
Totally. It's always fun. You always share a ton of experience. It's always very nice, kind. Yeah, totally. We can talk about it forever. But let's start with the first question. So, for you, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, what is the most challenging part of being on your own, of being a freelancer?
I am juggling, and it's sometimes extremely tiring. Like literally switching contexts is so tiring that I feel mentally drained, right? Because it's this way that when you have multiple clients, multiple projects, and everywhere you need to ensure this custom-made approach, you feel like you're constantly in a different world. And you have to handle this, also stick to the deadlines and give everyone the feeling that, yes, I am actually treating you in a very special way because we've built a relationship. And this costs a lot of energy. I love it, but there's a huge cost to it, which is energy, indeed.
I know from this time management and productivity side that when you are switching to different tasks, you always losing part here and part there. So I'm curious, how does it work for you to switch between different clients to really ensure that you are giving all of you to them?
So the first thing is priorities. I always prioritize like what's going to take the most time, for example, where I really have to engage mentally into a certain project or a certain task, because some of them are more demanding. The rest, that's easy, and I literally know the response. I literally know how to handle it because I've done it multiple times. I don't invest that much time in it. And also, I reuse the things that I've produced in the past, so to say, right? So the things that I focus on, the things that I work on with my clients, it's this way that I've usually done them before, or to a certain extent, I've done that before, which means that I don't need to reinvent the wheel, and that helps a lot.
I feel like it's also the best part when you're working with many different clients because you always have some systems, you always have some processes, so you are not starting from scratch. Yes, definitely. Sometimes there are different needs, but you always know at least where to start from. And then it's the easiest part is, you already have your basis and then you just keep building up on that.
That's true.
And I'm curious, what is the most time consuming thing you must deal with except for work itself?
The context, because the business context is always different. I may have a bigger company where I did something for them, which was, for example, a process. And then I have a company which is small with 10 people. They have the same request, but it's going to be a completely different approach. Or when we have context that refers to people, to their habits, to something that they tried before. Now, for example, I have a client where I'm delivering the whole kind of like, so to say, remote work setup, how to design things so that the company works well in an async manner. And so they tried for 2 years on their own. Many new people came, many people left. They tried multiple tools. And although I know exactly how to do it, I need to take into account every failure that they had and their preferences as well, and also the personal approach. I need to see the preferences of the CEO, how he likes to do things, what kind of person he is, what approach he has towards the team, for example, because the culture is also different. So here I would say, okay, I have a certain product here, take it and just go away. I can't do it because you really have to reevaluate and think, okay, which buttons should I push so that it works out based on what's already been done. So I think that when you're starting from scratch, I mean, not yourself, but something that your client wants because they've never done it before, it's much easier. But when you jump into something that they tried or were digging into for a long time or abandoned, well, then you also need to fix things and learn the context. And I think this is the most time-consuming thing.
It's like a rewriting a code that someone wrote
Yeah,
before. You have to understand
exactly,
what worked, what
exactly.
didn't work, and then to deal with your stuff. And I'm curious, what is your understanding process? Like when you are joining this kind of project, like what is your process of getting to know what the history, what people wants, what people needs? Like how do you get to know people and requirements for this project?
Well, of course, it differs what kind of project it is, because if it's, I don't know, contracts, for example, then I say, okay, give me all the contracts that you had in the past. Okay, I'll evaluate them. I'll tell you what's not compliant, what's compliant, and at the same time, what your goals are, where I see the gaps, or I see how everything, your business should be protected. Then I look at the contract again and I say, okay, you're lacking these processes, for example, because although you have it on paper, it's not going to work in real life. So I focus on this aspect. But then when I have, for example, projects where people are involved, I always say, okay, can I talk to some people? Can I get to know what was done in the past, and also take notes and understand their perspectives. And if it's company-wide and referring to culture or also to something that has to serve a large group of people or the whole department, the whole company, right? Then I sometimes also do surveys to kind of like find out and automate it from this perspective. And then I also use AI to help me understand the logic, to streamline things quicker instead of analyzing myself, depending on the number. Because if you have 500 people that you send a survey to, good luck, I would be able, I don't know how I would need to price the project to make it profitable, analyzing everything one by one. So here AI is obviously helping as well.
What kind of AI tool are you using?
Oh, well, that depends. So I either have some hidden in project management tools that I use that help me kind of automate my task and schedule quicker. But here I usually look at the numbers. Sometimes, to a certain extent, even the most basic one, I literally use ChatGPT or its competition for open questions. And this is quite interesting. So when I have open questions that I share with people, of course, I always first remove the name of the company because that's very important. But when I have, I don't know, 120 responses that were responses to open questions, and I need to find the logic, I will take that and I'll say, okay, so what's the trend within these responses? What do you see? Instead of course, I read them, but I read them once. But
Yeah.
you need to think very, very, very deep and for a very long time. And here I'm like, okay, so can you tell me what the logic here is? What's the trend, of these responses? And then when I get what it spits out, I read it, I take a look at the responses once again, and okay, that makes sense. So here I can build a strategy based on that.
It's like the same what I'm doing with Freelance Thrive and Freelance Sucks podcast. So I always remove all the names, all the data, sensitive data from the conversation. Then I put it into ChatGPT and like help me to come out with like 3 things or 5 things. And then I know what we were talking about. So I have it in my mind. And then it just helps me to really come out with like the faster description or faster thing. So I totally get where you are talking to. And yeah, I feel like, AI is helping us in a way. So, what is the most nerve-wracking thing you must deal with as a freelancer?
Okay. Multiple calendars and multiple emails and multiple tools. This is dramatic. I mean, I don't think that all of these tools were ever invented to think about people like me, because when I have 6 or 7 inboxes, because very often I get the inbox or I get an email account from my client because I have to. Sometimes I work on my own, that's fine. But sometimes because of even getting access to some of their tools, let's say I build processes in Confluence and I have 3 clients that have Confluence, good luck. Keep logging in and out each and every single time, even if it's set up with your personal like business email, you still kind of have to switch in between accounts. And then imagine, of course, you can have different profiles open on Google. You can't do that, but still it's painful. You're getting notifications. You're clicking on that notification. You want to get in. It's telling you can't get in because you are not in this workspace. Oh my goodness, and the same refers to Slack, to ClickUp, to as I said, Confluence, to Notion, to everything. It makes your response time, I would say, slower, but then it's also super frustrating because, as I'm saying, if it's connected with my own business account, I need to switch through the profiles. So, imagine you're getting an email with a question where someone tagged you in a tool. You're clicking on it, and then you want to respond immediately because you know the response. It's no, log in with a different account. Why? And this is driving me crazy, not to mention that I, of course, have synchronized all my calendars. But then you never know. And then because otherwise you would never know how to function. But of course, you have different systems because you have Microsoft, you have Google. Sometimes something breaks. And then, of course, you're having a link to join. Here you have this tool, you have Meet, here you have Zoom, there you have Teams, or your app is out of date. No way. This is frustrating.
Yeah, it's a separate. And the fun thing is that every tool is competing with each other. So they're not allowing just to gather all the things in one place. So you can just operate with every tool in one place because they want you to be user of their tool. Yeah, it's a nightmare. I totally get it. And as a freelancer, do you ever feel professional loneliness?
Sometimes I would say it depends who you surround yourself with. If I surround myself with people who understand my, so to say, challenges and my way of life and way of doing business, I connect with them very easily. But then if I, for example, would say I surround myself with people who only have a 9-to-5 job, they won't understand how I'm juggling, for example, in the afternoon, that I need to get things done, that I'm not done with work at a certain time, but when things are taken care of effectively, right? And sometimes there is this lack of understanding, like, why are you still working? Like, you can't disconnect. Like, why are you doing this? Oh, I wouldn't like to do it this way. Thank God I work a different way. But then I would like to have all the things that you have. Like, why do you travel so much? How do I do that? I'm like, yeah, keep doing the things I do them. So sometimes from this perspective, if that was your question, if I understood it correctly, yeah, you sometimes feel a bit lonely, I must admit, from this perspective that you just are on your own. I mean, no one's coming to save you, right?
Where do you find like-minded people to talk to?
Oh, it's a community. It's all the people in the community, and we are all part of a big community. I mean, you yourself are part of the freelance community. I'm also part of the community of people within the remote work space. They're absolutely amazing, and they're all like-minded. And I mean, I made so many friends. And as a matter of fact, I must say that because of these communities, I feel understood very much, because nobody's asking me these weird questions like, how do you function? Like, why do you do this? Like, why this, why that? It's so natural to everyone. So I think if I can give anyone a recommendation here, then to find like-minded people, join a community, and there for sure you'll find some of them, and that is super helpful because you don't feel like you're crazy, you feel like, oh, there's more of us.
Yeah, and you definitely can talk about the same challenges, and people won't be like, "Oh, what are you talking about? I have the same things." And say like, "Yeah, totally, we deal with the totally same things. Like, here is what we tried, etc." Blah blah blah. So, yeah, go find your tribe. Do it right away. And if your friend wanted to become a freelancer, what are top 3 things you'd advise them to consider before doing it?
The first thing, that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be extremely difficult. It's going to be extremely difficult to reach a point when you actually can live a good life based on that. So my advice based on what I've just said would be don't give up. If you're really, you have to be super resilient. You have to be very resilient. And if somebody closes the door, you have to find a window to get in very often. If you get rejected 50 times, don't get discouraged because the 51st time you may not get rejected. So the first advice is be extremely resilient, stick to your values, and don't give up, right? So this is the first one. The second one is you have to be willing to work with different people. People have different moods, people have different work approaches. Every client is different. So you have to have emotional intelligence to a certain extent build up to be able to function with different clients, with different people. Sometimes I have people that are like, here, process, whereas the rest is like, oh, let's chat and, let's whatever, let's meet somewhere for coffee when you're in Paris and talk about God knows what, you need to figure out, you need to understand who is, where. And then the third thing is, in the very beginning, maybe you will try to do everything to earn a living, everything that you can. But then at the end of the day, you have to keep thinking what is scalable and what really drives the most money. And you have to think about it from a strategic perspective and focus on certain things. It can be 10 things, it can be even 50 things, but if you automate and streamline them properly, but then think what consumes the most time versus what gives you the most money. And also you have to, based on that, you have to keep observing the market all the time to understand the demand and where it's going. You always have to be one step ahead to know not to get surprised as much as you can. I know those were more than 3 tips, probably 15, but I couldn't help myself because there's just so much to talk about.
And I wish to have the sky's the limit, but time is the limit. So the final question, if you were starting freelancing today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
Yes, I will tell you. This is a very technical thing. So I started my own website on Wix. I built it myself. Then I had it built on Wix professionally by another freelancer. Then because my business was growing, I moved to WordPress and I had it done professionally as well. But then WordPress wasn't enough. And when I had everything built up in a very beautiful and huge way, I had to proceed with the migration to Webflow. I thought I was going to, I don't even want to describe the process. So think big. Of course, you don't need to have like loads of expenses up front, but think about where you're going to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years if you're really so resilient to keep moving on. Because if you don't build up things the right way, you will pay a very high price, which is time. The migrations I've done so many times that was completely not necessary. Migrating newsletters, contacts, redoing all SEO. I mean, no, don't do that. Do it right from the beginning and talk to someone who's been through this to give you the right advice. Because no, I wouldn't have done it.
Got it. Like I can't even feel that pain. So I totally get it. And yeah, Nadia, thank you so much for sharing your experience and for having such an open conversation.
Thanks a lot. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button or 5 stars and share it with your friend. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.